Hello, and thank you for joining this webinar on release management with distributed agile teams. My name is Pratik Batija, and I work with the product marketing team of Zoho Sprints. I hope you and your teams are safe and collaborating remotely. In the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, many companies are implementing voluntary or mandatory work from home policies. This means a lot of us are dealing with an unusual challenge working from home for the first time. And it's especially challenging for agile teams who are used to collaborating on physical scrum boards with face to face daily stand ups and retrospective meetings. Communication and collaboration is the key to make distributed agile teams comfortable with the new virtual reality. A cloud-based tool like Zoho Sprints helps teams to communicate, collaborate, and embrace changes with greater agility. In this webinar, I'm going to be demonstrating two new features in Zoho Sprints. First, a feature for release management that helps release managers to plan, organize, and track their releases. Second, our Jenkins plugin that helps DevOps teams to connect their CI/CD pipeline with Zoho Sprints. Now let's take a look at this example of a mobile app that is being built for an airline company to help their users browse through different flights and book their tickets. Now this project could be broken down into three epics, which is sign up, find flight, and purchase ticket. And within each epic, there are multiple user stories that are associated with it. To effectively collaborate with your agile teams on these epics and user stories, you can organize them in multiple releases. So in this example, these set of user stories could be mapped to a release, and that could be called as MVP 1.0. The other set of user stories could be mapped to a different release, and that could be called MVP 2.0. Each release would be associated with multiple work items that are spread across multiple sprints. Let us take a look at another example of a demo project where we're building an e-learning library. I will be navigating to Zoho Sprints to show you how this particular project could be broken down into multiple releases. When you sign into Zoho Sprints, on the left pane, you'll be able to see a module here for release. On entering the release module, you'll be able to see that in this demo project, where we're building an e-learning library, I've created a few custom stages for my project. You'll be able to see release stages for business analysis, in progress, user acceptance testing, and the final stage, which is released. And under each of these release stages, you'll be able to see that I've mapped a few releases. For instance, MVP 1.0 is in the release stage, and I have a release MVP 2.0, which is currently in the user acceptance testing stage. You'll also be able to view the duration of the release. For instance, I've planned my second MVP between 5th of Feb 2020 to 25th June 2020, and I'll also be able to view a breakdown of all the sprints, the stories, tasks, and bugs that are associated with this release. And below, I'll also be able to view the owners who are responsible for that given release. Customizing your own release workflow is very simple. To add a new stage, you can click on the plus release stage button here, and you can choose whether you'd like to add it before or after a given release stage. Here you'll be prompted to give your release stage a name. Let's call this market research. And under the options here, you'll also be able to update the color and reorder the stages as per your release workflow. So if you'd like to reorder your release stage, all you'll have to do is drag and drop the stages here and click on save. Now in this demo project, we already have a release for an Android app and an iOS app. Now let's create a new release which could be for the second version of the Android app. To add a new release, you can click on the plus button here and you'll be prompted to give your release a name. Now let's call this Android app 2.0. You can enter a description here, specify a start date and an end date. Let's say this takes about 6 months to complete. You can also assign release owners and click on create. As your release progresses through different stages, you can simply drag a given release and drop it to the next stage. And if you'd like to associate existing work items or map new work items to a given release, you can click on the three dots here where you'll be able to map new items to this given release. So you'll be prompted to give the new work item a name, specify where you'd like to add this to. You can choose whether you want to add this item to the backlog or any of the upcoming or active sprints. You can assign this to multiple users, specify an epic, give it a priority and estimation points. This is one way where you can add and associate new work items to a given release. Another way is through the backlog. Now, when I'm in the backlog, I'll be able to see that I have two labels that are associated to each work item. The labels on the left are the labels for epics. Now, I have several epics for this particular project. Given that it's an e-learning library project, I have epics for courses, for managing subscriptions, and for onboarding. I can confirm this by navigating to the epics module here, where I can see the list of epics that are associated with these projects and how different work items in the backlog, active, upcoming, and completed sprints are mapped to this epic. The second label that you see here indicates the name of the release that this particular work item is mapped to. And I was mentioning about a second way of mapping work items. So when you're in the backlog section, you can open a given work item and you'll be able to view a release field here where you'll be able to map this particular work item to a given release. Coming back to the release module to show you some of the other features. Now when I click on a particular release here, this view gives you a summary of all the work items that are mapped to the given release MVP 3.0. So from items from the backlog to an upcoming sprint, an active sprint, and all the completed sprints that are a part of this release. I can also view the total number of estimation points along with the breakup of the number of users. So for instance, I can see here Linda has about 8 points in this release, Yash has committed for about 14 points, and so on. And I can also view the breakdown of all my work items across sprints, the number of stories, tasks, and bugs. This view also allows me to add or associate new items. I can also move items from my backlog to an upcoming sprint or an ongoing sprint. And I can also view the percentage completion of this particular release. And in the other actions here, I'll be able to edit the release details, filter or export the release, delete the release, and the commits and pull requests is a very useful feature for those who've integrated Zoho Sprints with source code management tools like GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. Now, in this view, you'll be able to view all the commits and pull requests that are associated with this release. Now, when I open this particular work item under the GitHub module, I'll be able to view all the commits and pull requests that are associated with this release. And this also is hyperlinked with the actual commit or pull request on GitHub. Now let's come back to our release board and explore some of the other features. When I move a release to the last stage, which is released, I can also view the release notes, as in I can view all the user stories, tasks, or bugs that were a part of this release, along with the epics that they were mapped to. And I can view this report for all my releases with the start date, the end date, the actual release date, and how late or ahead was it as per the schedule. Some other reports that we offer are the release burn down report, where you'll be able to view a burn down chart either by estimation points or by the count of the number of work items mapped to a timeline. This dotted line is the prediction, which gives you an estimate of when you're likely to complete this release. And you'll also be able to view the list of items that were completed along with the estimation points that were burned. And in the burn up chart, which is the inverse of the burn down chart, you'll be able to view the number of work items that you've been burning. Again, this could be viewed either in terms of the number of work items or by the estimation points. And this also gives you a predicted line and the rate at which you are burning work items. And in the global view, I can generate a view of all the work items across all projects with the sprints that they're associated with, the current status of the work items, and along with the details of the release that they are mapped to. Now let's discuss the second new feature, which is the Zoho Sprints plugin for Jenkins. Most of you are already aware that DevOps is an IT mindset that encourages communication, collaboration, and automation among software developers and IT operations in order to improve the speed and quality of delivering software. And the image you're seeing in front of you is an illustration of a CI/CD pipeline with various steps like continuous development, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, and continuous integration. A CI/CD pipeline bridges the gap between the development and operations team by automating several aspects of deployment, testing, monitoring, and integration. Jenkins is one of the most popular open source automation server that helps DevOps teams set up their CI/CD. Let's say your team of developers are using GitHub or any other source code management tool, and they've committed their changes which are now ready to go live. This is integrated with Jenkins, where you've built your CI/CD pipeline with multiple tools for continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, and so on. Now, what the Zoho Sprints plugin for Jenkins does is that it summarizes the information about your builds and passes it on to Zoho Sprints. Information like the current status of your builds, whether they were successful or whether they failed, the amount of time it took to trigger and complete the build, who was it triggered by, etc. And this information could be useful for your release managers and for your Scrum teams to collaborate on tasks and bugs once a particular build is deployed. The Zoho Sprints plugin is available in Jenkins under the Manage Plugins section. I'll also share the link of the Zoho Sprints plugin along with the help documentation that will help you to understand how you can generate your auth token and configure the plugin on Jenkins. Now I'm going to be demonstrating how you can integrate Jenkins with Zoho Sprints and keep your releases updated with the latest status of your builds. Now I'm going to open a particular work item. Now let's consider this work item where I would try to trigger a build in Jenkins and push real-time updates to Zoho Sprints. Now you can see that I've already integrated this with GitHub for my source code management. And from the comments that were triggered from GitHub, you can see that this build is now ready to go live. Now I'm going to be navigating to Jenkins and I've pre-configured a couple of projects. One of them is a freestyle project and another is a pipeline project. Here you can see that I have already installed the Zoho Sprints plugin. I will leave the link to the help document which will give you more information about how you can install the Zoho Sprints plugin on Jenkins. I'll open the freestyle project and show you how you can configure real-time updates to Zoho Sprints. Now in the build triggers step, you'll be able to notice a few actions that the plugin has pre-populated. For instance, you can add comments to a work item, you can add a status to the project feed, you can update the item priority or the item status. In this example, let us try adding comments to a particular item while the build is being triggered. Have to indicate the project ID followed by a hashtag and the item ID. We can get the project ID and the work item ID from the URL of the work item. So I can copy the last few parameters here and paste it here. Now P28 is the project ID and the syntax that I have to follow is the project ID, hashtag and the work item ID. I215 is the work item ID. And in this scenario, while we're triggering the build, the comment could be something like build initiated. Now in the post build actions, you can again see that the Zoho Sprints plugin displays a few pre-configured actions like adding comments to a particular work item, adding a status on your project feed, updating the work item priority or the work item status. Now in this case, let's update the item status. So I copy the work item prefix and let's move this to the release stage. Let's add one more post build action where we post a project feed update to notify all the project users that this build has been completed successfully. So we can add a post build action for feed status, enter the work item prefix, and the status could be build is successful, and you can again enter the work item ID so that your users are aware of the build that we're talking about. And save, and let us now trigger this build from Jenkins. The build is being updated and you can see that the build has been successfully completed. Now let us navigate back to Zoho Sprints and refresh this particular work item. Now in the comments you can see that the build initiated comment has been posted here successfully. and you can also see that the status has been updated to released. And in the activity stream, you can also notice that uh, the item was moved from in progress to the release stage. Now let us look at the project feed. Now the project feed also has an update from the Jenkins bot, which is posted a status saying build is successful, and this would notify all your team members. Now you can configure as many build actions and post build actions that you'd like. And as I mentioned, you can build your CI/CD pipeline in Jenkins. And when you use the Zoho Sprints plugin, all the information about your build gets passed on to Zoho Sprints, where your release managers and your Scrum teams can collaborate. Now let us take a look at another example, which is of a pipeline project. And in this case, let us configure it in a way where it deliberately fails and you add the build log as an attachment in the comment. So you can use the pipeline syntax option here to generate your pipeline script. And let us now build this particular project. And you can see that this particular build has failed. Now let us go back to Zoho Sprints, and here you can see that a new item has been added to the backlog, and the title of the item is pipeline build failed, and you can see that it has been assigned to me along with the attachment of the build log. Now these were just a couple of examples with some very basic configurations. You can build your own CI/CD pipeline, and you can make use of the Jenkins plugin, wherein all the information from your continuous integration, continuous deployment is passed on to Zoho Sprints, where Zoho Sprints is the hub where you track all the status of your builds. Apart from posting actions of the builds, you'll notice that there is a Jenkins logo here. And when I click on that logo, I can view the reports of all the updates that are happening in Jenkins. As you had noticed that there was a freestyle project and a pipeline project, I can view reports like the status of the build stability, the last success and the failure time, and I can also view a report of all the bills, whom they were triggered by, the status of those bills, when were they triggered, the duration of the bills, along with the build details like the log and the actions and the activity of the Jenkins plugin. You can even filter this report by using this option here. There are filters for the build duration, the build time, the build status, and the users who triggered it. For instance, if you want to filter only builds that were successful in the past 7 days, you can apply those filters and get a report of that. And you can also customize and rearrange these columns or search for a particular build by entering the build number here. For further in-depth reports, you can click on the View Reports button here, where you get detailed Jenkins reports like the user-based report, the job-based report, build reports based on status, and build reports based on the job. And these reports can be filtered by different parameters and can be exported as well. To make your distributed agile teams comfortable, a recommended best practice is to check if everyone in your team is comfortable with using the right tools. This webinar is one such initiative, and I hope this was useful. Please let us know if you have any questions or feedback. Our current conditions require a calm response to complexity, and Agile empowers us to be our best in the face of uncertain times. Stay safe, stay agile. Thank you.